Hey everyone, this is a video to help you with the CS Awesome open-ended responses for lessons 9.2 through 9.4. So we have been talking about inheritance, and I wanted to give you a couple of problems in CS Awesome to help you remember how to extend a given class. So a subclass will extend a superclass, and just to how to write a subclass, okay? So you're gonna read these three sections, and most of what we have talked about in class, but it's important to read through and just kind of review the content and just kind of hear it from a different perspective, other than just one person, me. Just it's nice to hear things being explained in different ways. So please make sure you go over those readings. And let's take a look at this next problem here. It says create a square class that inherits from rectangle. And we know from, hopefully we remember from math class, that a rectangle is a quadrilateral that has 4 right angles, okay? And I think that's about it, right? So that means that you can have a quadrilateral that has 4 right angles, and they could happen to have the same sides, length, right? They can have sides that are all congruent, or they can have, you know, the opposite sides, you know, they're gonna be congruent, but then they don't necessarily have to be congruent with the adjacent side, which would what normally we think of as a rectangle. But squares are also rectangles. They just happen to have 4 congruent sides. So we're going to show explicitly that relationship between these two shapes. So here we have a rectangle with 2 attributes, length and width, and they could happen to have the same length and width, right? Like the length and width could be equal, but we're not going to assume that is true. So for any rectangle, we've got the constructor, no arguments, 2 arguments, and then the draw. Now, you're going to make the square class, and so in order to inherit from the rectangle, we have to write the word extend rectangle. For number 2, you're going to write a no argument constructor. So we're going to go ahead and write public square, no arguments. Okay. And let's take a look at what we have here. We could use just a no argument, call on the no argument constructor of the rectangle class. I can turn my light back on because the length is 1 and the width is 1, and so that is a square. So why don't we just call on the no argument constructor? Okay. So super no arguments. And actually, you don't have to necessarily define this. This will be done automatically. We're going to explicitly define the no argument constructor, but if we didn't, then if we didn't have anything, it would automatically insert that call. But you do have to define a no argument constructor because we're going to go ahead and define another constructor, which is one that takes in single parameter. So in this case, if you take a look at the one where you can have some variability, you actually have to call the super, right, constructor with 2 arguments. And here, L and W will actually have the same value. So here we're going to call on super, and they're going to have, these are L's, by the way, okay? I think this one is a 1. I know it's hard to tell, but that's a 1 and this is an L, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and do number 4. We're going to uncomment these lines. This one, and this one, and this one. And let's see if I remembered to do everything. So let's go ahead and save and run. And there were some errors. Oh, I forgot a semicolon. So let's put a semicolon here. All right, now let's try it. All right, And that is it. Okay, and then we called on the draw method, which basically draws a representation for the length and the width, right? And with these asterisks. So it's kind of nice to be able to see the calls. And the calls were here in the main method. We drew a square, okay? First, we had a rectangle, length 3, width 5. Was it length and width? Let's see here. What's the first one? Yeah, length and width and length and width. So this is going to be the number of rows, 3 and 5. So there's 3 rows, 5 columns. Okay, length 3 and width 5. Here we've got the no argument constructor for square, so it's 1 by 1. And here if we have a 3 as a argument, we have a 3 by 3. Okay. So length 3 with 5, 1 by 1, and 3 by 3. All right, I'm going to let you answer these on your own. And let's go ahead and take a look at the person. Nope, not the person, the customer. So we're going to complete the online customer class to inherit from the customer and add an email address attribute, a constructor, and override the toString. So here we're going to uncomment these. And then we are going to extend. Okay. And we want to add a string, an email attribute. So there we go. Then we're going to create a public online customer constructor. And it has 3 arguments. We've got name and address, and email, which is a string as well. And then we're going to assign it to its instance variables. So let's go ahead and take a look here. And we got string. We're going to call on this super class constructor, which has 2 strings as its parameters. So super, and then N, A. And then we've got email. We're going to assign to the last parameter here, which I called E. Now we're going to override the toString. So here, the toString up here returns name and then new line address. And then we want it to actually have another new line and then email plus the email variable. Okay, so let's go ahead and define. We're going to override the toString method. You want to return a string, but we're going to return the super.toString method. Right, we're going to call on that. It's going to return a string that includes name and address with the string literals here, which is nicely formatted. So we're going to have to add to it another string literal, \n, and then email, right? And it has it right here. So I'm going to just copy this. I think we want, do we want a space? Yeah, we want a space. So let's put a space right here, plus and then email. All right. So let's see if I have any errors. Let's run. Let's see what happens. Okay, so let's take a look. The first call, let's look at the main method. We're going to create just a regular customer. So we've got its name, the customer's name and address. But then we're going to create an online customer. We've got name, address, and email. So when we scroll down at the results, we see name, address. But then for the toString method for the online customer, we have 3 lines of output, name, address, and email. Okay. All right, so I hope that was helpful, and just let me know if you have any other questions. Bye, everyone.